On the screen with me is a video from right after I had started this channel. It's dated October 28th, 2022. So almost 2 years and 4 months from the time of this recording, I published this video, and the title is Digital Product Sellers with VPATs/ACRs Can Destroy the Competition. Accessibility Means Sales. And it still only has 22 views to date, but this is really important information. And what we're seeing right now at accessible.org, VPATs are in demand. Clients are asking over and over again, I want a VPAT, I want a VPAT. So let's go ahead and we're going to play a clip from the video, and then I'm going to talk more about the tremendous advantage if you have an accessibility conformance report. Marketplace that's missing. And so if this video is an alarmist video for product providers, because if you're listening to this is free money. This is a way to differentiate yourself in the marketplace and have a tremendous advantage on your competition, because they will be left behind, and it's probably going to take them weeks, if not months, to catch up. And by that time, you've already got your accessibility statement. You've already addressed accessibility. You have at least one document. All right, so I said alarmist in there. No one was alarmed by this video because it was typical me, very monotone. We've got my bed in the background. Again, this was early on, not like my videos have progressed that much further, but very few people watch this, but really, really good information if you could get past the bed in the background. And so we're going to move to another tab. And here we have a blog post that I posted just a few days ago, actually just less than 2 days ago. It's titled VPAT Bonanza, How Sellers Can Win Contracts with Accessibility in 2025. And in the first paragraph, I write, here's an insider secret. A solid accessibility conformance report will help your company win more contracts. And this doesn't just apply to government contracts. ACRs are red hot in the private marketplace. And the reason why I wrote that is because VPATs are commonly associated with Section 508 and winning contracts with the federal government. But this is taking over in the private marketplace right now. As I said, clients are continually coming to me and requesting audits, VPATs, ACRs. And so before I continue, let's just go ahead and differentiate VPATs and ACRs. A VPAT is just the templated document, and you need to fill that in and complete the VPAT. Once it's completed, then you have an accessibility conformance report, or ACR. The two terms are used interchangeably in the marketplace, but everyone understands when someone's requesting a VPAT, what they're getting at an ACR. So just to clear that up to start with. But now let's scroll down, and we have a paragraph. Here's the deal. And I'm just let's read through this second paragraph here. This means accessibility is in demand, and we expect that demand to hit an all-time high in 2025. Again, this is taking place right now. Like as I'm talking during the week, more and more the requests are for VPATs and ACRs. And then I have here, it's the network effect. So there's a sort of network effect that is happening because everyone's requiring everyone else to meet their requirements for compliance. And so really having an accessible product or service along with the documentation is essential to sales. Now, what shouldn't get lost in the discussion with VPATs and ACRs is really these documents are so important because of what they represent. So it's not so much the document, even though that's what's being requested. It's not so much the document as much as it is the accessibility that the document can potentially represent. As I talked about in another video, a VPAT or an ACR, it's not certification. It's really just a mirror, optimally a mirror of your product or service's accessibility. So this leads to a second section, which I have the heading, How is accessibility judged? And I write, everyone is asking for a VPAT now. And I have VPAT in quotes because, again, it's an ACR. And then I talk about the difference and how having the VPAT ACR can help you with uh, uh, moving ahead of the competition. But then there are the two quick catches, which is what I wanted to get to. So the first catch is if your product or service is riddled with accessibility issues and or doesn't meet a lot of criteria under the technical standards, the ACR isn't going to save you. So even if you have this document and you provide it to procurement agents, it doesn't mean that your product will be selected, because again, it's not the document itself that's so essential. It's the underlying accessibility, and procurement agents and buyers, they are discerning. They want to select products or services that are actually accessible because they need to meet their internal requirements or compliance requirements, whatever the requirements are. They have to check certain boxes. And so if your ACR states that your product has many accessibility issues, your product or service isn't going to be chosen. And then the second part of this, the second catch I have here is that buyers are much more savvy now. And so it's not enough just to have the document. So in the past, there may have been circumstances where if you had the document, then that was going to be good enough to move you on to the next checkbox, so to speak. But now buyers are more discerning and they are scrutinizing ACRs. So questions that buyers may ask are include who filled in this VPAT? Was it filled out in-house or by a third-party digital accessibility company? Because they want expertise, because they want to know if the product or service was evaluated correctly and completely. Also, another question, who issued the ACR? Again, was this from an independent company that specializes in accessibility, or did you just come up with this in-house by someone someone on your digital team who knows about accessibility? Was an audit conducted? So an audit is going to be a formal evaluation. And what you might have is, let's say it's the in-house route, you go the in-house route, and then someone from your team looks at a few accessibility considerations and starts checking boxes, right? So we want to see whether there has been a formal, thorough evaluation of the product or service. Again, who conducted the audit? Really important. What evaluation methodologies were used? And this is something that's actually you're actually prompted for on the VPAT documentation. So the evaluation methodologies are going to be looked at even on the document itself. So even on the ACR, because that's important. We want to make sure that there is a thorough evaluation where attention to detail has been paid. And so in this next paragraph, I talk about anyone can fill out a VPAT. That's the case, right? But buyers want to know. We want to get back at the whole point of this documentation to begin with. Is this product accessible? And that gets to the integrity of the ACR. Is this ACR accurate, or was the person filling this out biased because they are assessing the accessibility of the product that they have worked on? And or do they have the requisite knowledge and expertise to conduct an audit and fill out this documentation? Because most organizations don't have accessibility expertise in-house. So what I have here next, this next section is clever companies. So again, we've seen a surge in clients who are after VPAT services, and this started in November and it's continuing now into December. Even right now, like amidst the holidays, right? Like a lot of things are slowing down, but not the request for VPATs. And so clever companies are recognizing the advantage here. And they're like, hey, we're getting requests for this. We better get on top of our game and get this documentation. And if we are working on the documentation, we need to work on accessibility too if we haven't already. So that's where the audits come into play. The audit is going to be necessary to fill in the VPAT anyway, right? To complete the accessibility table, we need to have the audit to have that information to carry forward into the VPAT template. And so if we have the audit and there are a number of accessibility issues, let's pause in the process and let's go ahead and allow, as the service provider, accessible.org, let's allow the client time to remediate if they want to, and that way they can have a cleaner ACR. So there are less accessibility issues, ideally no accessibility issues, But just because you have a technical accessibility issue where your product or service doesn't fully support a given criterion, it doesn't mean that your product or service is no longer up for consideration or up for being purchased or winning the contract. That's not the case at all. It just means that there's a given criterion under a technical standard that you may not fully support. And if that's the case, well, then that's where we're going to look at the best product for whatever the client needs are, right? So just because you have an accessibility issue, just remember it doesn't automatically disqualify you by any means, because other products and services are also working on accessibility, and being fully conformant can be extremely difficult, especially depending on the nature of the digital asset, whether it be a web app, software, etc. So again, going back to the clever company section, companies are realizing, so many organizations are realizing, we need this documentation to compete, and not only compete, but have a real advantage in 2025 as this is starting to take over the marketplace. So this is a way, if you, let's say you're in the third spot in your niche, this is a way to take over the number one spot. It's really, it's a really the accessibility hack. And if you're the dominant market leader, this is the way to cement your positions. To get ahead of this, get ahead of accessibility. Have an accessibility statement posted, right? Talk about your investments. Work on this. This is something where you can really take advantage of it's not so much a nuance, but an emerging demand that will continue to be in demand for the foreseeable future. Accessibility is not going away. You might as well be on top of this. It's been overlooked for a long, long time, but this is something, if you get started now, you can't get started soon enough. It's already a requirement that's coming to a movie theater near you. So you might as well work on this right now, and just rather than just looking at this as let's check a box, be really, really good at accessibility. Whether you're working with a third-party provider, bringing that expertise in-house, training your team on accessibility. If you become a leader in your niche on accessibility, that is going to help you stand out. It's going to help you win contracts. It's going to make it so much easier for you to get to have your product purchased, and really, again, cement that market lead or take over the number one spot. And so it all starts with an accessibility audit. That's what you're going to need. A lot of people right now, they're just focused in on the VPAT documentation and creating the ACR. It all starts with an audit. So you need to have that audit, but you also need to have the documentation filled out correctly so that you can get an accurate ACR, and one that has been issued by an independent third party. Even though you can issue it yourself, I highly recommend it's issued by a third party provider, just because this is what you need to win contracts. Otherwise, your ACR it's not going to be given the same weight as another ACR that was independently issued. And you're also going to want to work with a reputable accessibility company. And when I say reputable, one easy way to filter out a lot of accessibility, let's just say accessibility sellers who are offering ACRs, is to just discount any accessibility sellers who are also selling overlay widgets or overlays. And that is because we already know that overlay widgets don't make websites accessible, and yet they are still being sold. So if you have any questions about that, if you go to overlayfactsheet.com, which I will link to in the description, you can find out a lot of information on why accessibility professionals, ethical accessibility professionals, immediately are like, accessibility professionals are completely against overlay widgets, and it's unanimous. And so if you go to this website, you will find out more information on why overlay widgets are bad. And so that's an easy way to filter through a lot of accessibility sellers in this marketplace and just not even do business with them. All right, so I have here a section on how to crush accessibility procurement, and then we have a wrap up. And I'm not going to go through this because we've gone on long enough in this video, but you get the point. There's a real advantage to embracing accessibility right now and then also working on this documentation. Remember, it's not just the document itself, it's not just the ACR, it's what the ACR represents. If you have both, you're going to win contracts. So I will include a link to many resources in the description. I will include a link to this blog post. I will include a link to my older video from over 2 years and 3 months ago. I will include a link to our pricing for our VPAT services. All of that will be included in the description.